Was it Nikola Jokic's fault that the Nuggets lost in the playoffs? That sounds kind of crazy, right? Jamal Murray struggled. Michael Porter struggled, especially in the second round. But at the end of the day, Swipa, is it the fault of the best player in the world that the Nuggets didn't ultimately get it done?
Yeah, I think that's a nuanced question. That's a tough question. Ultimately, no, just because that's just not how actual basketball works.
Right.
I think in this case that if somebody wants to blame Joker for maybe the first, iterations of the game of that series, then I guess or whatever. But the Joker's, his defense was the thing people were looking at all playoffs like, it just doesn't seem to have the same pop and tenacity consistently that you wanted. But I just think if you look at Joker from like, I truly think the more I've sat back, because the Nuggets, they've been out since 2 Sundays ago now. And I've had time to really sit and think about the season in totality. Joker had a lot of energy, but I just don't think like the carryover defensively was there from an energy standpoint. Because it didn't feel like he wasn't trying, but his offensive load was so big all season. And then going into the playoffs, that first round, people forget, 28 points, 16 rebounds.
Yeah.
10 assists in that series.
He was killing it, man. He
had a 67 true shooting in that series.
Yeah.
He was going haywire. And Jamal had 23 points a game and about 7 assists. But Jamal, his efficiency wasn't there. Porter's was there. He was lights out in that first round. But then you get into the second round, and now they're playing versus Anthony Edwards. A lot of catch and recover, a lot of double teaming at the top, a lot of movement. And then we're on the other end of this. Rudy Gobert, Anthony and Karl Anthony Towns and Naz Reid, they're battling Joker every single possession.
Did a great job.
McDaniels getting hands in there. And then on top of that, Joker setting screens. Every play, 1 to 4 screens to play, it felt like. It just didn't seem like, except for in game 5 and really first half of game 7 even. I would say game 4 too. I would say game 4. His defense was like as good as it needed to be. So I don't think it was Joker's fault. I will say I was shocked they lost game 7. I was shocked because they had a 20-point lead at home. I think we're still kind of reeling from that. But when I look at that game, I'm also like, look, Joker had 34, 19, and 7. If your second best player had 35 points that game, if you can't get more than 7 points for anybody else in game 7, then you know what? Like, I can't put that on you. I do think some of the execution stuff in game 1, that was on him. I think just because of like, there's some things he could have did, especially in that second half. Defensively, they were just kind of falling apart.
Right.
But I just don't blame him overall, though, because at the end of the day, his jump shot wasn't there, but that's like variance. Last year he shot over the whole run. This year he shot under the whole run.
Yeah.
And so Joker kind of oscillates like that as a shooter in the playoff from the 3-point line, at least. So I don't think it was on him. I just think that there are spots he could have been better at.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's unfortunate. So he shot 27% from 3 in the playoffs, but he shot 23% against the Minnesota Timberwolves, which against that team with as much ball pressure as they have and as much rim protection as they have, you need him to shoot threes. And that was the one criticism I think I have from him in game 7. Now, he had 21 points in the second half. It's not like he wasn't working. Like, he was working very hard, and the team as a whole, I think, had like 35 points or something like that in the second half. So it wasn't perfect. I do think he shot like 2 of 8 from 3. I think his approach wasn't perfect. I think he got tired. I think he got fatigued. And that's what happens when you have a long season where you're playing 79 games, you're playing at an MVP level the entire time. You're carrying the organization. You're carrying the entire league. He's got all these obligations. And I think it sort of wore him down. And I wonder if the Nuggets going forward can help him with that a little bit more. First and foremost, it's got to come from Jamal Murray. Murray has to be able to take some of that pressure off of him more consistently, because the way that Murray was getting bottled up for most of the Minnesota series, it puts so much more pressure on Joker to be perfect. And he just he wasn't perfect. And that's okay, because nobody will be perfect. And yet Jokic had an incredible game 5. Well, maybe the best game he's ever played in his NBA career, I think. So it is a nuanced conversation. But I think Denver, They got to get him a backup center that actually can play during the regular season. They got to find some ways to lessen his burden, to add some more creation so that he isn't doing everything for the team. So he isn't leading the league in touches per game at all times and doing everything. And he's just got such a heavy burden. They got to save him so he can be at his best in the playoffs going forward.
Yeah. And you know, the next time he goes to the playoffs, he's going to be 30 years old, which in the NBA now, you're still in your prime. You're in your prime until you're 34, 35. I mean, at this point, who knows? 36, 37. I have no idea. I mean, Kevin Durant's still in iteration of his prime. LeBron was the best player in the world, I think, at 35 years old in 2020. So who knows?
It's true. But it does, like, you cross that threshold, and this may be the best he's ever been. And he may not be this good ever again. Like, we don't know. I think it's important to
hold on, Ryan Blackburn. Hold on. Just settle your horses there. 2018. See, LeBron was born in 80 and 84. LeBron was my age. He was 33 in 2018, and he by far had his best playoff run.
Let me use the rest of NBA history as opposed to LeBron James, one of the greatest athletes ever, in terms of my evaluation of Nikola Jokic.
Michael Jordan too.
His ability as a cerebral player is absolutely going to carry through. Right. But I do think that it's on the Nuggets. It's not on Joker in order to help him get there, in order to help him be the best version of himself in the playoffs.
But that's what the Spurs did with Timmy, though. They managed it by giving him a lot. I'm talking about a lot of defenders around him. They put Tiago Splitter behind him, who was a good player for an iteration. They obviously had Matt Manu and they had Tony and them. But even like they went from Bruce Bowen to like still high quality defenders and like Kawhi Leonard and all them,
Danny
like Green.
Oh my God.
I mean, they loaded up to make sure, okay, you have a job to do, but we're going to make it as easy as possible by putting as many athletes around you as possible to make it as difficult as possible for the other team to tire you out. Right. So that way you can, over the course of a game, because still, you know, Duncan was old 2013, 14, but he almost won DPOY that year. He was incredible that whole season. So I think Joker, go ahead.
No, I think it's on the team because so much of this pressure, and it's been put on him for 5-6 years now, where so much of his responsibility has been borne out as a singular person trying to lift the tide of all boats. And if there's anything that the Spurs dynasty has taught us, it's that it's about the collective. The individual is at the center of it, that's for sure. Tim Duncan is always like the through line of everything that they do. But with Joker, the great thing about his game is that he's able to lift up other people. So you got to get other people to put them into positions to be successful.
Yeah, and I think that whole backup thing, like there is no more like flyer. It's no Kamagate flyer.
Yeah.
DeAndre Jordan flyer. They haven't had they had Boogie, who was a good flyer, but he was a flyer. They haven't had a solidified backup since Mason Plumlee. Like we just can't do this anymore. That was 4 years ago. Like that time is over. I think at this point it's like you have to do your job to protect your best asset. And your best asset needs a backup center. He needs defenders, like a combo guard that can actually guard, make it more difficult for the guard and wings to just like approach him as much as possible in space. And so I think like they're doing that. But this is why like when Calvin Booth said what he said about the young guns, I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Me personally, no way, Ryan, no way. Go throughout the annals of NBA history. That is absolutely not the way to go. Fortify your assets. They even gave Jordan, you know what? He had Scotty, but guess what? He had Steve Kerr and them. That's cool. Like, you know, he had a nice little like white shooting guard, like, you know, in both those iterations and all that. But dog, Ron Harper, 6'5" defender, dog, and he could get a bucket here and there. And then you give him Tony Kukoc and all them. That's cool. Here's Dennis Rodman. Here's Horace Grant. Here's Bill Cartwright. We're gonna give you a bunch of dudes. That way, you ain't got to do everything. And so for me, it's like I want Joker to focus on playmaking, being maybe the best playmaker in NBA history, the best floor raiser, and being the elite scorer you are and the elite rebounder. That's what you should have to focus on most of the time. Now you got to do all this other stuff, but look, this is what I mean. This is where we're in DeAndre in the DeAndre Drummond or the DeAndre Drummond territory. we're in the territory of like, Mark Williams. We're in the territory now where it's like you need a young, athletic, vertical spacer behind him that can play defense, that can take some of the lean away from him. That way, Jamal Murray ain't got to worry about just doing pick and roll with him. Like I just think, Ryan, Calvin Booth and them have to be looking at the rest of NBA history and like, okay, well, this is what we need. Like LeBron even needed wings.
Right.
Think about it. LeBron had Channing Frye. He had Jeff Green, Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith. Oh,
bunch of dudes.
Kyle Korver.
Bunch of dudes.
Tristan Thompson.
Options.
What are we doing?
Options is the most important thing, man. Like, so to answer my own question, was it Nikola Jokic's fault? No, of course not. It was not Nikola Jokic's fault that they lost the series. I think it's on everybody, and I think Jokic can be better. But I do think that there are so many different aspects to this where the Nuggets, they didn't fully come together this year. They didn't fully coalesce into what they were supposed to be like they did the previous season. And I think a lot of that is going to come with setting the table for playoff success in a better way than they did this last year, where they were just trying to hold on to what they had accomplished in 2023. You got to evolve. You got to get better.
I agree.
So we will see. Everybody let us know where you think the fault lays at the feet of the Denver Nuggets losing in the second round to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Very curious to hear the comments on this one. We'll be here at Mile High Sports.